Hi, I'm Christopher Hein, and this is going to be a video about what Aikido is. So what is Aikido? This tends to be a big problem. It's a big confusing thing right now for everyone. I think the way that I explain Aikido is really straightforward, will make a lot of sense to people. I think if you use it kind of as a barometer, it'll help you figure out what's going on with Aikido. So the first thing to understand is that Aikido is a system. A system is not just a random collection of techniques. It's an organization of things, so if you have a problem, there's another suggested answer to the problem. And as you go through this, as you go through the system, you constantly are getting answers to new problems that are arising as you go. So a system is not just a random collection of things, it's an attempt to get us to a resolution of some sort. The next thing you have to understand is what's a resolution in Aikido. So Aikido is not about fighting. I think you could ask any Aikido instructor in the world and they would say, oh yeah, Aikido is not about fighting. But what does that mean? And how can something be a martial art when it's not about fighting? So we all know you fight or flight when conflict arises, right? So there's a conflict, you either choose to fight or flight. There's another part of this which is negotiate. And that's not really talked about in most martial arts systems. However, the idea of negotiation is the goal of Aikido. Aikido means the way of Aiki. Aiki means energetic harmony. So the goal in Aikido is to get us to a position where we can make energetic harmony. That sounds crazy, like some kind of hippie talk. What is energetic harmony? Energetic harmony is a conversation or music or something non-physical that is harmonious in nature. So if we're having a conversation, then ideally you wouldn't want to attack me or hurt me, right? If you wanted to attack me and hurt me, how can I get us back to a position where we again can have a conversation? So this is the goal of Aikido, to get us back to the Aiki, the way to have an Aiki interaction. So if someone wants to break it down, how do we do that? So remember, Aikido is not about fighting, it's about having an energetic interaction that's harmonious. How do we do that if someone wants to attack us? So remember in Aikido, we want to have a harmonious interaction and not some kind of dominating interaction. We don't want to fight with someone. So what is our success level? So if you're looking at success in boxing is knocking someone out. What is success in wrestling? That's holding someone down. What's success in judo? It's throwing someone. So other martial arts have clearly defined ideas of success. In Aikido, success is having a conversation with someone. So if we can get it back to a state where we're having a conversation, that's what we ideally want to do. There's several ways we can do that. But remember, in Aikido, we don't want to fight. We want to negotiate. So the problem arises when he won't let me have the conversation with him, right? So if I'm sitting here dealing with this guy and he won't let me have a conversation with him, then I've got to defend myself in some way. I've got to keep myself from being hurt. Now that doesn't mean hurting him, right? So I don't suspect he doesn't like me and then deck him. Now I could, and that would be an answer boxing has. Or if I want to hold him down, that would be an answer that wrestling has, or throwing, judo, whatever martial art. In Aikido, I simply want to have that conversation. So what he's going to try to do is get me in some way, right? He could punch me, he could hit me, he could grab me, right? He could do any of this stuff to me. All this stuff would be bad. We couldn't have a conversation when he does that because we're in physical, he's got me physically, so I can't do anything. So what I want to do is always keep a minimum safety distance. So our minimum safety distance is this. From this position, he cannot touch me without taking a step. So meaning he can't surprise me and hit me. He can't surprise me and kick me. A lot of the Aikido stuff's like, oh, you have to get really good hand deflections. Well, the first step before really good hand deflections is you have to get good distancing, good ma'ai. So I want to have good space between me and this guy. If I have good space, then he cannot surprise me. Now, ideally what would happen is every time he takes a step towards me, I take a counter step. All right, now, a lot of people say, like, how practical is something like this? It's highly practical. In fact, it's the basic skill that you use all the time, right? If someone wants to attack you, you probably don't just go, raw, or shoot a double leg. You say, hey man, hey, calm down, everything's cool, let's not have a fight, right? That is ideally what you want to do. And that's exactly what Aikido prescribes as well. Now, Aikido as a system continues on if he gives us a problem at this range. So remember, Aikido is a system, meaning every time we have a new problem, we have a new set of answers as we go. So you can make a little flow chart that explains this, right? So the next problem would come when he starts to break this distance down. So remember, ideally, I'm trying to keep this minimum safety distance. Every time he takes a step, I take a step. The next stage is what if he's able to break that distancing? Okay, so with our system, The main idea is we want to have a conversation. So success in Aikido, number one goal is to have a conversation, a non-physical interaction. What if he threatens to attack me in this? So we're having a conversation and I know he's up to something. I want to keep and set this minimum safety distance. So that's my goal. Every time he tries to encroach on this minimum safety distance, I'm going to take a counter step that keeps us at this minimum safety distance. That enables me to keep him from surprising me at all, which is what I want. Now, how would he break that down? Well, what he would probably do is try and rush in past that, right? So understand that every time he takes a normal step in, I'm taking a counter step, right? So if he's just stepping in normally, I'm also stepping out normally. He can't get any closer to me. So in order to get closer to me, he's going to have to lunge in, right? So this lunge in is what Aikido's next set of answers are. So the next set of answers are arm suppression and Tai no Hinko. So Tai no Hinko is a position change, right? So imagine if he was coming on a straight line to me, I want to change my position so he'll miss me. Really simple. Along with that, we're going to get hand suppression. Okay, so now we've got our main idea. I want to have a conversation with Josh. Number two, what if he's trying to encroach on me? I want to set that minimum safety distance and keep the minimum safety distance. How will he break that down? He's going to rush in some way to break it down. When he does that, I want to make Tai no Hinko. So he comes in, I get offline. Now the next important thing to understand is I need some kind of hand suppression. If I don't suppress his hands, even if I move off the side, he's just going to shoot his hands over here and grab me. I don't want him to be able to control me. Remember, if he controls me, then it's going to be really difficult to have that conversation that we're angling towards. So what I do is I get some kind of arm suppression here. Now what this does, it makes it very difficult for this arm to come in and get me, right? So he can move his arm, of course, and I can move my arm. I can keep him at bay, which is what I want. He could also reach across from his other arm, and I can use one side to stop the other side. This basic idea is where we get the concept of Ikkyo. Ikkyo is Aikido's first main principle, and that is to control at the elbow. Now why elbow control is so good is because if I'm off here at the hand, he can move his hand really fast and it's hard for me to keep up with it. So if it goes high, it's hard for me to chase it up high. If it goes low, hard for me to chase it low. If I control Josh at the shoulder, he still has a lot of mobility, so it's hard for me to stop him. However, the elbow is a nice medium place where if his arm goes down, I can go down. If his arm goes up, I can go up. I can keep a hold of him. Also, if he tries too hard to go up, I get what is a true proper Ikkyo, which is a way to throw him away from me, which is what I want. So remember, he's now thrown himself in here to break the distance. I've made Tai no Hinko, so I've made a variation in position, so that way I'm safe. And I'm getting some kind of arm suppression to keep him from getting me. So this arm suppression is what helps me to be able to escape here. Now what if it breaks down from this? Okay, so remember, our number one goal, have a conversation. How do I do that? If he wants to attack me, I keep a minimum safety distance. Every time he tries to get closer to me, I take a step out of that. What if he rushes in? I want to get Tai no Hinko, a variation in position that makes me strong relative to him, and I want to get suppression. But what if that breaks down, right? So what if I'm trying to get arm suppression here, and he sneaks around that and he gets a hold of me? Now we have the concept of Hodoki, how to break free. So he grabbed me. Remember, my goal is to have a conversation. So if I could do something simple to break free, then we're again at space, and that space might be able to give me the chance to have a conversation with him and talk him down from whatever he was doing. This is the idea of do-dori. So they grab our body. So that could be a kata-dori, a shoulder grab. Maybe he gets both shoulders. Maybe he grabbed my lapel. Maybe he grabs me from behind, either both my shoulders or my collar from behind, right? So all those things are likely to happen. If we're moving around a lot and I'm trying to evade this guy and he gets and grabs me, you can see that these things will really naturally happen. So we're at range, which means we're not setting up double leg takedowns or anything like that. I'm always trying to move away, move away, move away. We're moving fast at this point. No one's standing still. So you got to understand, Aikido is a movement art. When I understand that he wants to attack me, I'm trying to move around to keep him from attacking me. So when he's doing this, he's going to be making quick grabs to try and get a hold of me to hurt me. So that's why we have these ideas for escape in this. But what if it breaks down a little further from there? An important thing to understand is, if Josh were to grab me, I don't want to choose to grapple him back. That would be an answer for jiu-jitsu or judo or wrestling, something like that, where he grabs me and I say, okay, if you're going to grab me, then I'm going to grab you back and I'm going to win because I have superior judo skill or jiu-jitsu skill or what have you. However, in Aikido, the idea is there's always another attacker. So if he grabs me and I say, okay, fine, now we're gonna go to grips and I'm gonna get you, right? The problem is, while I'm throwing this guy and taking a bunch of time to get him under control, his buddy's coming up to attack me. In Aikido, we can't have that. The idea in Aikido is always that there's another attacker somewhere. So instead of him grabbing me and my concept being, okay, you've grabbed me, let's wrestle now, my concept is simply to get free. I need to break out of this situation because there's someone else coming and I have to be able to deal with that person too. When there's another person, how do I deal with that? So where weapons come into play is when there's a threat that's so high, I cannot escape using the weapon to defend myself. This again is logical, right? So a lot of people who are studying martial arts want to go through with this idea that like, I'm going to solve everything unarmed. You know, I'm turning myself into such an awesome weapon that I'm going to handle, you know, multiple people who are armed while I am unarmed. This is a weird idea. It's culturally a weird idea too. It's exactly the reason why people who are interested in self-defense learn to use weapons as well, right? So weapons help us. So this is where weapons come into play in Aikido. Now understand, just because we're using a weapon, our philosophy doesn't change at all. I want to get to the conversation. If they would allow me to get to the place where we can have a conversation, I won't use the weapon. But I'm using the weapon now because they won't allow me to get to that position. So what if this guy attacks me now and I have a weapon? Okay, so I have to use a weapon because the amount of force that the attackers are bringing is so significant that I need to defend myself. This is exactly what you would think in a home defense situation, right? When someone breaks into your house, you don't think, oh, I'm going to run down there and box the guy in my house. You get your firearm or a golf club or whatever's handy that you can defend yourself with. So that's exactly what I would do in Aikido as well. The amount of force is so great that I need to use a weapon to defend myself. In Aikido, we classically train with 3 weapons: the tanto, the jo, and the bokken, representing a sword, a stick, a longish stick, and a knife. When we use them in Aikido, they are referred to as Aiki-ken, Aiki-jo, and Aiki-tanto. And the reason they're referred to as this is because we're remembering the idea is we still want to get to the conversation. Just because I have a knife in my hand doesn't mean I want to stab someone. It means that he's giving me no choice but to use the knife sometimes. So now the rules are exactly the same. I'm trying to keep my minimum safety distance. Every time he steps in, I step out. But if he comes in quick and there's multiple attackers, I may need to use my knife. Now, if I'm using a knife because the threat of force is so great that I have to use it, what's a problem that I could arise? So remember, when we're thinking systematically about Aikido, the next problem that could come up is, what if I can't use my weapon for some reason? How would he stop me from using a weapon? One way he could stop me from using a weapon is by grabbing my hand. If he's got a hold of my hand, I cannot use this. Now, there's a lot of ideas in Aikido about some kind of sacred magnetism or something weird that happens when someone's doing an Aikido technique, and that's why they can't let go. No, he can't let go because if he lets go of this, I'll stab him. So this is what allows the techniques of Aikido to come off from wrist grabs. He's desiring to hold my hand. Now remember, my main goal is to break free. How would he hold my hand if he caught it? Well, he could hold it with 2-on-1. That's called Marote-dori. He could hold it cross-handed, like this. He could hold it both of my hands like this, or he could hold both of my hands from behind. Why would those things arise? Well, if I attacked him from this side of his body, most likely he's going to come into Katate-dori. If I came from this side of his body, most likely he's going to go into Gyakute-dori. What if he got the Katate-dori? What would he want to do? Well, he'd probably want to go 2-on-1 because that's a better grab. That gives us Marote-dori. What if, when he grabbed me, I switched knife hands to stab him? If he grabs my other hand, we now have Ryote-dori. What if I came from this side of his body and he decided to get behind me and choke me? So he comes back here and now he's got me choked. What am I going to do? I'm going to put the knife in my other hand to stab. What if he doesn't like that? He's going to come back here for Ushiro Ryote-dori, right? So you can see now why we have these weapon hand techniques, right? So all this Katate-dori, Gyakute-dori, when you see it and people go, oh, that's silly, because why would that ever arise? It arose because the threat was so high that they've grabbed my hand. Now you might say, well, when he grabs it, he's not just going to hold it. He's going to try to get to a better position to wrestle that out of your hand, right? So he's going to try and get into some very serious, tight position. So what do you do about that? The first part to understand is that is getting outside of Aikido's regular curriculum, right? Exactly like as if you went to a boxing coach and you said, hey, boxing coach, teach me how to get out of headlocks. The boxing coach would tell you, we don't do that here. Now you could say, yeah, but that's a part of fighting and I'm here to learn to fight, so you should teach that to me. But the boxing coach's job is to teach you boxing. In Aikido, the job is to teach you simply how to get back to that negotiation phase. If that intense grappling situation happens, that's beyond Aikido's idea. But further, Aikido's always attempting to get free. So remember, when he grabs me, I'm not thinking, how can I get in there to stab him? All I'm thinking is, how can I clear my hand quickly so I can set that safe distance back up again? So that's what I'm working towards. So again, here we have another set of answers if he escalates. But what if this guy and his buddy are armed as well? All right, so what if he continues to escalate it up and they become armed? So again, you have to go back to the beginning of our theory. So Aikido is a system, so it's built on this one idea of we want to have a conversation. We don't want to physically fight, we want to have a conversation with the other person. So number one is, I'm scared he's actually going to physically attack me, so I create a minimum safety distance. If he tries to edge closer to me, I simply step out of the distance. If he lunges in to attack me, I make a position change and try and get arm suppression. If he goes around my arm suppression, gets a hold of my body, I try to escape him. What if he's got a buddy, right? If he's got a buddy, I cannot wrestle with this guy. So I have to keep trying to keep myself free. Also, if he's got a buddy, the situation gets very intense and I might need to use a weapon. So this is where me using a weapon comes into play, and he might be grabbing my wrist to keep me from using the weapon. But what if him and his buddy are armed? It's important to understand Aikido is a traditional Japanese martial art. And so it's looking at the traditional weaponry of Japan before the modern era, right? So we're not talking about pistols and rifles, we're talking about classic weapons. Classic weapons in Aikido are the katana, the yari, the naginata. So while these weapons might seem silly to someone studying modern martial arts, they are very practical weapons for the day. And today, most of the lessons we learn with those weapons, we can apply. So if they're using a weapon, then we need to learn how to disarm the weapon. And this is where a lot of the Aikido techniques come from. So remember, the Aikido technique, its goal is not to get them. So in most martial arts, we think, oh, how do I get the person? So when you think of something like a Sankyo, you think, oh, the goal of Sankyo is to twist his wrist so hard that I damage the wrist, or I hurt him, or I make him be compliant. No, the goal of Sankyo is perhaps to disarm someone who has me. Or if I had the weapon, to clear my weapon hand so I can be free. So this is where Aikido techniques come into play. You can use most of the classic Aikido techniques that we see, using them as disarms for when someone is armed and attacking you. So remember, I want to keep that distance, but if they break that distance down and I get arm suppression, I might need to disarm. All right, so now remember, my goal is to keep this guy at distance, but what if he rushes in with the weapon? We might end up in a position kind of like this, right? A lot of people will say, yeah, but Aikido teaches you to strip the weapon away from some position like this. First of all, I'm not just going to stay like this. I would begin to start to grab a hold of this guy so I could get the weapon away if I needed to. But what if he pulls back? Remember, if he pulls back, what I want is distance again. So that's fine. If he's pulling the weapon back, I want to pull myself back as well. So we again get out of distance. I'm always manipulating that distance so there is space between us. This only happens because he is pushing into it so hard and I'm not able to back out. So if he pulls himself out, that's fine. I'll pull myself out as well. Exactly what I want. If we're in this close distance, what things does Aikido teach us to deal with? Well, the first one is Ikkyo. That comes right from our from our arm suppression and gives us weapon suppression as well. This Ikkyo can quickly be turned into a Nikkyo. That Nikkyo could quickly be turned into a Sankyo. That Sankyo could be turned into a Yankyo. That Yankyo could be turned into a Gokyo. That Gokyo could be turned into a Rokyo. And all of these things have the potential to strip the weapon away from his hand. So the classic techniques taught in Aikido are teaching us to disarm, as well as clear. So understand, if I have a weapon, he's also going to be stopping that. And I can use those same techniques like Sankyo, Nikkyo, Ikkyo, Yankyo, Gokyo, and Rokyo to clear my weapon as well as take weapons from him. The principles taught in Aikido are teaching us how to deal with weapon situations where the situations got so extreme that he's armed or I'm armed or perhaps both of us are armed. Hey, what if both of us are armed? Aikido teaches weapon-on-weapon techniques as well. So we study how to deal with a sword and a sword and a Joe, or a Joe and a sword. So the idea is, what if both of us are armed? Remember, the main goal is still to get to conversation. It's never to just beat this other guy up. That's not what I want to do. But he keeps bringing the force more and more and more, so I have to escalate along with him, otherwise he's going to overcome me. So Aikido also teaches weapon-on-weapon techniques for this very reason. Aikido teaches an array of different ways to deal with these extreme situations. As these situations build, Aikido has answers to deal with them as we go. So understand, the goal of Aikido, what's successful in Aikido, is to have a conversation. That conversation might have to go a long route to be had, but the goal is not to beat this guy up, not to throw him, not to hold him, not to hit him. Those things might happen as consequence, but that's not what I want. What I want is simply to have a conversation. So when you're thinking about what is practical Aikido, think about what we're trying to do, which is the most practical thing in the world. Have a conversation, make an accord, so that way he doesn't want to hurt me and I don't need to hurt him.